So welcome back. So let's try this again. I've added a new thing here, and what I want to talk about is what we call action verbs. And here I'm using the post verb. And let me just jump into TutorialsTeacher just to show them all. We have 4 different verbs, and one of them is HTTP GET. You don't see that often because that's actually the default one. So just like if we didn't add something in front of a class, it would be internal. The same here, this guy, if you don't put anything at top of an action, it'll automatically be a post. Now that's almost always correct because there are actually some naming conventions inside the .NET framework where you say, if you say post in front of an action, it actually itself figures out, okay, I'm probably a post. So we'll try to use that later. But the verbs are these guys. So it's another decorator thing we can do where we just add to our class an information set saying this action is only going to be hit if the request sent from the client is a post request or a get request. And let me show what I mean there, because this is a big topic and I want to just move into it slowly as we move forward. You can go and read about it under ActionVerbs on TutorialsTeacher if you want to dive into it right away. But I just want to do it slowly here, just step by step, because it's hard to explain it all. So let's try and start out here just by explaining the difference here. Now I have 2 different functions here. I have one called find by ID. Now that's a GET request. That's something that I can hit directly using a GET request. So the program is running right now. Let me try and go into person and say find by ID and say wanna do enter. And notice here, I'm hitting this breakpoint right here. I don't have to, I just wanna go back, and I'm getting Gurli ID number 1, just like I expected. And if I open this guy, you'll see this is a GET request, okay? So it's very easy for me to do GET requests. It's just putting information inside the URL and you will automatically do GET requests. But to do post, delete, and update requests, you have to have some kind of form on your page, and we don't have that right now. So I can't directly up here go in and add some kind of request type called post. It's not possible. We'll have to fake that, and I'll show you how. So if I wanted to actually call this guy, as I just said, I cannot just go in and write the parameter. There are actually 2 questions here. One, how do I actually do it? So if I write this, in the first setup I showed you guys, it would be something like I said, store data, and then I would do a slash and then put in an ID of 10, and then do maybe a slash more, and then write a name of Ole. That's not the way you do it. That would give you an exception because we have the ID here, but then we had nothing in the end, so it wouldn't be used for anything. So what you have to do instead is use another syntax, the parameter syntax like this, where you say, you put in your URL and then you do a question mark for all your parameters, like ID equals 10. I'll just do it here. ID equals 10 and the and sign and then the name parameter. So that's just something for you to know. It's important to know that anyway. This is how you can pass in multiple parameters using a GET request. It's still a GET request, even though I add a gazillion parameter, it's still a GET request. So I will never hit this one, and I'll prove it to you. So I'll just put a breakpoint in here. I don't even need the breakpoint. If I launch this, it'll actually give me an exception that it could not find that thing, right? So why couldn't it find it? It's the exact path. Person controller, store data, person controller, store data, ID name, but it didn't find it because this is a GET request. But I expect it to be a post request. That's why it fails. So the decorators, you can go in and decide what type of requests to send to a user. Now, I can prove to you that I can actually, you already did that here. I could actually store this directly in database, but it's bad practice to use a GET request to store stuff in the database, right? Just to let you guys know, you shouldn't use a GET request like this guy to store data. No, explain to the user, if you want to store data, you'll use a post request. Right? And then you'll get something called the body tag available for you, and that you can put in all your data instead of using the URL. And I'll show you that as the final thing here for this video. So I've launched something called Postman. I'll explain that to you later. And here let's just start doing a simple post request. So now instead of a get, I've converted it into a post request, and then I do a send with the same parameters that I just showed you. Let me zoom a bit. It's exactly the same parameter set. I'll do a send, and now I actually hit the request. And I go back and it pops up with Ole and ID1. Perfect. And now when I do a post, notice if I switch back to get, this body tag is grayed out. I cannot use it. But when I do a post, you'll get an extra field in your request called body. And in there, you can actually go in and specify data. And let me just quickly here specify some very basic very basic JSON. There we go, an ID, and the ID should be 1, comma, and name, and the name will be John. So here you can go away from parameters, right? And you can start using the request directly the way you should. So you shouldn't put in stuff up here when you want to add something. It's not necessary. Instead, I'll send in some information and I'll send it as JSON, and then it'll figure it out itself. I'll press send. It pops up in Visual Studio debugging mode, and here we have the ID there and the name there, so we are all good to go. And I'll get more into JSON and stuff like that, but I just want to show you that it can actually return the data using post. So that's the difference between the post, get, put, and delete, and we'll dive a lot more into that, but that's what ActionVerbs is all about. It's just, if you put a square bracket is to be post to explain that this is a post function, or a put function, or a delete function. That's all it is. See you in the next lesson.